The question is that the motion be agreed to. The Honourable David Parker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This bill came to Select Committee after a first reading where the government says that all they were doing was codifying into the Building Act the existing law with some very limited exceptions. It turned out at Select Committee that it actually wasn't of that effect, and it took quite a bit of work at Select Committee for the Select Committee to get very close to the original law and get the bill back in order. There are a couple of points that I do agree with the Minister on and a couple that I don't. I do agree that with his comment about it's pointless having to have a fence at the top of a 20-metre cliff. You don't need a fence around a pool if it's at the top of a cliff. It makes absolutely no difference to the safety of the child, so why would you regulate it for it? I agree with that, and we voted against amendments to the contrary because we thought that was a sensible change. We also agree that spa pools and hot tubs ought not to be covered by the same rules, and so long as they've got a reasonably high wall, I think it's 400 millimetres, is it from memory? Or 800 millimetres, thank you, Minister, plus a lockable lid, then it shouldn't be within the pool regimes. I'm sure that National Party members like me have been getting emails from interested members of the public who've been writing to us throughout this suggesting that it's stupid to call them small pools rather than hot tubs or spa pools. For those people who are writing incessantly about that, they might actually care to read the bill because it says small pools such as a hot tub or a spa pool. Maybe it would have been better to say spa pools and hot tubs and other small pools, but it doesn't seem to me to be a matter of great moment. Where the Labor Party also thinks that some good changes were made at Select Committee where it doesn't just refer to the prevention of death, it actually refers to the prevention of injury, because of course if a child is in a pool, suffers a loss of oxygen, can be brain damaged but suffer serious injury to the detriment of all of their lives and to the detriment of their family. So it's good that the objectives of the bill now, or the purposes of the bill, are to minimise death or injury. The sole matter that the National Party had to agree to get us across the line was this other change from the code to actually permit alarmed doors rather than automatically locking doors. We wanted locked gates or doors around pools because we didn't think that alarms were an adequate protection for children, and we've been lobbied by child advocacy groups saying that there is substantial evidence that the rules that we do have suffer quite high levels of non-compliance, as the Minister has acknowledged. I think it was the Auckland City found that even on a 3-yearly cycle of inspections, at the end of that 3-year period, approximately 50% of the pools are non-compliant in some way. If you have alarmed doors, then it is likely that some of those alarmed doors are not going to be properly functioning at the end of that 3-year period. It is creating an additional area of risk to children which is not permitted under the existing code, and therefore in that way this bill goes forward and is more permissive, more lax than the existing code. Jacinda Ardern has spoken in earlier readings of this bill and made the point that it's pretty easy to ignore an alarm at one level. It's one of those things you hear and after a while you might stop hearing it. And the advice that we had from the groups that are worried about the drowning of children were that this was an unnecessary change to the law that would increase the risk of children. So having helped the government fix this bill at Select Committee, we had one very reasonable request, which was that change to the underlying code be fixed. The government has, I think, stubbornly and wrongly refused to agree to that amendment and voted it down at Select Committee, and accordingly you've lost us in the final vote. I think that's a bit of a shame because it was a pretty sensible suggestion that we were making. So the other thing that the bill did as it went to Select Committee was change the inspection period from 3 years to 5 years, and the advice that the Select Committee received was that there are already so many pools that are non-compliant at the end of 3 years, it would be worse if it was pushed out to 5 years. So I don't have many other contributions to make. I do agree with the Minister that it makes no difference so long as the rules are codified. It doesn't matter whether that code sits in separate legislation or sits under the Building Act. I think that is a correct point that the Minister makes. So I don't mind this sitting in the Building Act. I think that the Select Committee did a good job. It has, other than the point that I have raised about the relaxing of the code in respect of alarmed doors rather than lockable gates or doors, I think this bill is otherwise unobjectionable, but because of that change, the government stubbornly refuses to change, not getting our vote on the third reading of the bill.